This is 1 in 54, a presentation of Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 54 is a weekly show devoted to topics related to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 54, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and this morning I'm speaking with Lisa Audi, or Audi. I messed this up last time. Correct.
Audi like the Audi.
See, I grew up where it was Audi like the car. Audi, I'm sorry.
Listen.
So Lisa Audi, who is the board president and founder of a really cool, really new program called Bring On the Spectrum. And Lisa, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. And I would go by Audi if they would give me a car.
Hey, that's a good point. You could go either way depending on what gets you the car, but I have a feeling these days nobody's giving away cars. Anyway, so it's nice to have you on the show. I would love to just start by asking you to tell me and our audience all about Bring On the Spectrum, maybe from start to finish, sort of, what started it all, your personal and professional motivation and what it is, what your hopes are for the future. And I would just like to give it over to you.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate this. It's great that you guys are doing podcasts like this for the autism community. Bring On the Spectrum is going to be a community space and sensory gym located in Albany, New York. The idea was, trying to address what we all know are gaps in services and activities for neurodiverse population. And so, the sensory gym operation is, pretty straightforward in terms of, what it is and what it can be. What we've done that's a little bit unique is, we're going to be splitting by age groups. A lot of sensory gyms cater to very young children, early elementary. And we are going to have, an area that is for the early elementary population. Climbing slides, sensory swings, tactile type stuff. And then on the young adult section, we're going to have the swings, but we're also going to have some, light fitness equipment. And we're going to have, some activities that really foster interactivity. So air hockey, cornhole, giant Jenga. So the idea is that, you're going to be, building some of those, social skills while you're having a fun place to hang out. And that's the sensory gym. And then the community space really is a blank palette at this point. We want to hear what the community wants those activities to be. We're assuming some of the, more obvious of, art and yoga, improv. We want to do esports. We've had a conversation with the local Apple store about doing a photography class. Cool. And so really it's social, recreational, and lifestyle activities, that are of interest and a place where, you be you and you can go and hang out and, all times of the day to serve, really, we see the word spectrum as the spectrum of ages that the facility can, welcome, as well as, the spectrum of diversity and inclusion. So we're just really excited about the project and we look forward to it opening in the next few weeks. That
is fantastic. I already have questions. So can you give us a sense of size? How big is the space?
Total space is about 5,600 square feet. Okay. The sensory gym is about 2,000. The main community space is about 1,000. Then we have, another space that can be for birthday parties, for the cupcakes portion of the birthday party. Sure. It also could be converted into a small activity space. And then we've got another couple hundred square feet for a third activity space. So we've got, the ability to kind of be flexible, I kind of say amoeba-like. So that we can, really kind of move around things to be, all things.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that being an amoeba, it's good analogy, but that probably works really well for the people who you're hoping to give access to, that, the ability to flex and to both create a smaller space with sort of a tighter feeling, as well as opening it up for a larger space is probably going to work really well. And I would think be very attractive to caregivers and parents, grandparents, extended family to know that there's options. So that's great.
And I forgot to mention, we do have also a sensory room. And so that is the Price Chopper Golub Foundation has underwritten a sensory room that will be, the calming place. So if you get a little bit too excited being in the sensory gym, you have a place to go and, lay on a crash pad. And, we've got the fiber optic lights and the waterless bubble tubes. So that'll be, an additional thing so that, that's available for folks too.
Very cool. I had that years and years ago. I was in one of those rooms. It had a specific name. I think it was a Snoozlin room or something similar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either, but it was an interesting experience because I was in there. I went into one with a few other people. And we all had very wildly different experiences. Some people were immediately overwhelmed and had to leave. Some people loved it and would have stayed in for a much longer period of time than I could. I liked it for a while. And then it started to remind me of the feeling I used to get when I was on the swings, which I loved as a child, but if I was on the swings for too long, it was like it kind of was too much, and I would start to feel a little bit nauseous and overwhelmed. But I remember I've talked to so many families over the years in my role here at Anderson, and it sounds like you're providing an opportunity not only for a wide range of people and age groups, but also the spectrum often means to me that every person is still an individual, different person. And also what might be helpful and supportive and feel comfortable for one individual when they're 6, we should all have an expectation that when that person is 11, they're going to want to do different things. They're potentially going to want to do some of the same things, but also some new things. They might want to, involve another person or a group of people. So I love the fact that you've got some things designed for individuals to do activities, but then also this social component with those games and larger spaces. And then, of course, the birthday parties and opportunities where folks who, to be honest, some people I think have historically felt left out of those birthday celebrations or felt like they're not maybe going to have a lot of people show up for those birthday celebrations. These are things that I've heard from families over the years that can really, really heartbreaking. But one thing you can check off, it sounds like when you're going to bring on the spectrum for that event, is that the space is going to be set up conducive to the most success that you could have. So that sounds great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're 100% correct. I think, when we look at what's missing in any community, Albany or otherwise, it's, there's a lot of things for the younger kids, mostly sports, like a challenger baseball. And while sports are wonderful and they do provide social opportunities, not every kid likes sports. And so then what is there? And then, as you said, as you grow up, the 6-year-old eventually becomes 16, eventually becomes 26. And I think the long-term play, whether it's affordable housing and independent living, what our residential home situations are, what are the activities as part of that. It's like we've only focused on, autism as if it's like a 4-year-old thing. And then, age 5, it's over. And that's just it's just not realistic. And I think that's where, you see it in your everyday work, that's where our families are struggling. We're struggling with, all of the next steps. If it's a 26-mile marathon, we're not running, the 60-yard dash and it's over. We've got to be, more thoughtful as to what that long-term play is going to be for individuals and families.
Well, absolutely. I think you're 100% right. I think there have been some strides that have been made in terms of awareness that, I guess, first and foremost, that autism is not a childhood disability. Certainly you don't age out of it when you're 5, but you also don't age out of it when you're 21. And so you hit on a lot of points that we talk about here at Anderson that, we talk about with our partners at places like SUNY Empire State College and, Albany Medical Center and lots of, families from all over, have stories to tell and experiences that are very real and are still occurring to this day. But the other piece that you use the word play, and I know you were using it in the sense of the long-term sort of plan, in terms of how to address things. But I love the word play also because you don't age out of the need for play or the joy that play gives you or the peace that play gives you, or, and also the fact that for everybody play is different. I have a neurotypical child who never liked sports and finally got old enough to tell me that she really just didn't like doing sports that felt sort of overwhelming and competitive. But it's taken her many years to get interested in something, when I do think that there's a general sense, or can be a general sense, that people fall into communities where, every kid can just join the little league team, or even, like you said, challenger baseball. There are leagues that are designed specifically for young children, on the autism spectrum, or, with another type of developmental disability or challenge. But even that isn't enough. It really is all about having access of all kinds. So we are already amazingly halfway through our time. When we're going to take a short break, when we come back, I want to ask you a little bit more about the early decision making about moving in this direction, and then your hopes for the future, as well as a couple of things you mentioned about how people can give you feedback and ideas for what they might want to see at the gym, and who's going to be there to welcome families when they arrive. So we'll be right back. This is 1 in 54, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and we'll be right back.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
And now 1 in 54 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs program presented by the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 54, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I am speaking with Lisa Audi, board president and founder of Bring On the Spectrum. Lisa, it's been a good first half of the show. I'm very excited. I want to come out and see Bring On the Spectrum, the sensory gym and community space, when it opens, which is a great first question for the second half. When do you expect to open the doors?
We hope to open in the next few weeks. We're at the planning process with the town of Colony, and so things have been going very well there. We've got the equipment and we're ready to rock and roll.
That is exciting. Great. Are you going to have any sort of ribbon cutting or any event to launch the opening, or where can people find out more about when you'll be official?
Well, we'll have a grand opening weekend. Right now, folks can follow us on our Facebook page, which is Bring On the Spectrum. And people can also email any ideas or suggestions that they might have for the facility to bringonthespectrum@gmail.com.
All right. I'm writing that down. We're going to repeat that a few times for those of you who didn't get it. That's bringonthespectrum@gmail.com. I'm glad you mentioned that, Lisa, because you had earlier in the first half of our conversation, you had mentioned that you're open to feedback and ideas and suggestions from community members who might have some questions or some thoughts about what they'd love to see there, what their child, what their loved one, what their sibling, what their, friend might really enjoy at a place like Bring On the Spectrum. And is everything fair game at this point? Are all ideas welcome, even though you may not be able to act on all of them, but are all ideas welcome?
Certainly all ideas are welcome. The board and the advisory council that we've developed, have been awesome to this point in getting us to where we are. But really, it's the community. When we say it's a community space, it is the community's space. It's not, it's not my space. It's not the board space. It's what the community wants, what they feel has been missing. In the conversations that we've had with local service organizations and, people in our public school systems, parents, individuals, we've gotten a good idea of what people are interested in. But to me, there's no such thing as, not having somebody, provide an idea or offer a suggestion. I think ultimately we want the community to be, helping with the events, right? And so, I think we can get a committee of neurodiverse individuals that can plan, teen movie night. What is the movie? How much pizza are we going to order? What kind of pizza? Are you really going to go pineapple? Whoa.
Have you thought that through? Exactly.
Who's going to make the phone call?
Nice.
What time is it coming? How do you want to arrange the chairs? And that provides all this executive functioning and leadership opportunities. And it makes the space theirs. I mean, I'm at an age where I don't know what the movie ought to be, right? Like my 10-year-old, is, starting to graduate out of Disney. And I'm like, oh no, what's next? Because I love Disney's.
No, nobody wants my movie suggestions anymore at my house either. Oh, well.
Exactly.
I love that. What you just described to me is like the absolute most natural sort of teen night that I think in all the years I've been doing this show and talking to people, that to me just sounds right on the money. Because, they'll spend happily, half an hour to an hour just deciding on the pizza order. And then, oh my goodness, who's going to make the phone call, which is overwhelming for most people and many people. But I love that you said leadership, because out of that conversation, somebody will emerge as the one who takes that on and says, I'll make the phone call. And then they go home after that night with probably lots of things in terms of hopefully an enjoyable experience, maybe a new friend, maybe a new movie that they like, but also somebody needed to make the phone call and I did it. That's just so cool. And if you think about that from just a general perspective of both, of parenting, of being a member of a community, of being a friend to others and having friends, that's just so much of it is those shared experiences where it's not the big, shiny, bright object in the room. It's the, I ordered the pizza last night. I was part of making that successful. That's just, I just wanted to pull that out a little bit because that was a great example. I have another question for you. Are there going to be various fees for the use of the gym? Are there employees that are going to work in the gym and run programs, or what's how does it work logistically?
Sure. On the community space side, we are partnering with small businesses and other nonprofits to help provide some of the activities. We feel that, coming out of COVID, it's an opportunity for us to, support the small businesses that struggled during COVID. And we feel like, in essence, Bring on the Spectrum will be this ecosystem where our individuals are comfortable coming to activities. And so it's a way for smaller businesses to expand their opportunities in an environment where the individuals will have been experienced comfort coming to it. And we just feel like, we all succeed, as a community, neurodiverse, neurotypical, when we're working together and addressing what the needs are of the community. So that's kind of the concept behind the community-based portion of it. On the sensory gym side, we will have monthly memberships that will be, something that would be, reimbursable through OPWDD self-direction as part of like a health club membership, as well as just a regular, drop-in rate. I'm coming in for, an hour to participate. So the activities will have a fee that's, a relationship that we build with the small business or the nonprofit that's putting it on. And then the sensory gym would have a space. But we're also, looking right now at, opportunities to also serve the underserved population. We see the underserved population as our population because, if we were being well served, we would not need Bring on the Spectrum, right? But we also are very cognizant in terms of our location and trying to be able to serve the Black and Brown community. And so we've got some really good programmatic ideas to make sure that those communities, are included in what we have and what we offer.
Great. And let's say I don't know. Let's say there's the family that is raising a child on the spectrum, thinks this would be great, and maybe has several children, some of whom are on the spectrum, some of whom are not. Is there any reason why somebody wouldn't be able to come with their sibling? Are neurotypical children encouraged and allowed to come into the gym and participate? Is that? I mean, I would think that by and large that would be a positive in terms of that interrelation and social skills building and bonding experience. But just curious if there's any. I'm trying to think from the perspective of a maybe a parent who's feeling a little overwhelmed, not sure if this is for them. Is there any reason why they that wouldn't work?
Yeah, no, it would totally work. I mean, the space is for all, and all means all is really kind of our moniker. I mean, really part of the idea that kind of, where we started to kind of expand what we were thinking was, I've got a friend who's, got a neurotypical and a neurodiverse children. And on a Saturday morning, the family ends up splitting up and, dad takes, one kid, mom takes the other because they're not going to the same place. And so that's where we kind of said, okay, well, the neurotypical could obviously go into the sensory gym if they would want to. But if they don't, and we happen to have an art class going on at the same time, the neurotypical maybe takes the art class while the neurodiverse is on the swings, or vice versa. Like it doesn't matter. Right. So the space is for everybody. And that's where we started to think, that's where the idea that it needed to be just more than the sensory gym, right? Like, and that's where all the other activities started to kind of come. And so it's like the sun and the planets, and we're all kind of like orbiting around. Yeah. That's kind of where, some of the, early thought process came from was, witnessing this family. Cause, I just don't feel like families, you're in school all week, working, whatever. And then on Saturday morning, when you could be doing something as a family, you're not, because the family feels that, because of the neurodiverse child, they need to go to different places, or they need to stay home, or they just, there's not a place for them to go. Yeah. There is a place to go. And we welcome you.
Yeah, I think that that's great. I love that example. And also then you're able to expand to include, friends, cousins,
exactly.
And have those a place where you can also have a family gathering, where there's something for everybody. I think that it's not a surprise. I think at this point that the statistics on, marital challenges and other family dynamics that get really hard are often even more pronounced and more significant in the autism community. And so I really have an appreciation for anybody who's starting a new business or starting an initiative or project, anything in the field really that is accessible to the community and has at least a little bit of that in mind in terms of focusing in on some very specific opportunities that we now know can be really helpful and comfortable and positive and enjoyable for people on the spectrum, but aren't at the expense of more and more separation and isolation, because that's another risk and something that affects so many families. We are once again getting low on time. Lisa, I want to give you the opportunity. Next steps are email bringonthespectrum@gmail.com if you have ideas or questions about the opening for Bring on the Spectrum. Go to their page on Facebook, also Bring on the Spectrum. And in the next few weeks, I know you're going to be opening your doors and inviting people in. But last words from you about this work that you're doing.
We're excited. You mentioned a little bit earlier, we will be hiring individuals from the neurodiverse population. And we are working with, for example, Spectrum Designs on our staff T-shirts because we believe in walk the walk and talk the talk. We're just excited. We're excited for the opportunity. We are all ears, and we want this facility to be your facility. And that's what the intention is. And so, part of the name, bring it on, everybody. We're ready.
That's great. I love that. And I'm excited for you. I can't wait to come see it when you open. Again, if you have ideas or questions for Lisa and her team, you can send an email to bringonthespectrum@gmail.com. Follow them on Facebook, and soon enough, doors will be open and the website will be running. And I wish you all the best. I think it's an exciting project. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is 1 in 54, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 54, a presentation of Anderson Center for Autism. Join us for another edition of the show at the same time next week.